Scotty, it's just you and me today.
You and
MG
me, bro.
he's just had his knee surgery. Actually, I just got a text from him. If anyone's watching on the screen, you're going to see a photo of MG. Absolutely, he's in his hospital bed and he's looking a little bit dozy. He just messaged back. He said he's doing really, really good. He's just super out of it at the moment. So luckily he didn't dial into the pod. It would have been very, very interesting. But looks like everything went well with him. So he's on the road to recovery with his knee surgery. But how you doing? How's everything going with you?
Everything's going good, man. It's pretty stock standard. It's a nice time of year because we don't have shows, anytime soon. Kind of in that process, I've got a lot of athletes that are just wrapping up their pre-prep phases for next year, which is exciting. I think it's one of those things when you've been working, especially if you had athletes that have been in an extended off-season period, when you start to see the fruits of the labor. I use the analogy of taking a look underneath the hood, and you start to strip back a few of those layers and get an idea of where people are at. I'm starting to get pretty excited for 2025. It's going to be a big year, obviously the 3 seasons. But aside from that, man, I can't believe it's almost Christmas. We're talking about the TMG catch up, which is Sunday week. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Sunday 22nd. Yeah.
Hard to believe that it's come around so quick. So yeah, it's crazy.
I know you weren't here last year. I can't. That's sounds like so long ago, but it was only a year ago that you were in the UK competing and you weren't here.
I know.
For that year catch up.
It's crazy. I keep getting all these memories coming up on my phone of like this time last year and being freezing cold and being out in the rain watching rugby players smash into each other. It's it's hard to believe. And to be honest, the whole time I was there at that stage, I was starting to get a little bit homesick because I'd already been there for almost 2 months. So it's nice to be back. And what beautiful weather we're having. It's been very hot the last few weeks.
I know it's been. I think we're going to hit a 39 or 40 degree day coming up.
40. Yeah, I think it's 41 on Monday.
Yeah, and I think the next day is like 22 or something.
That's how we do. That's how we do it in Melbourne.
That's how we do it in Melbourne. Yeah, for sure. But going back to you said people in pre-prep phase, wrapping that up, all that kind of stuff. So those people, are they doing season C next year? Is that what the most? Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's the same as the peeps that I just wrapping up their pre-prep. They're doing C next year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So all your peeps that are in A, they're pretty much in prep at the moment.
Yeah, already in contest prep. Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you have anyone lined up for mid-year, or are you going to wait for the A if they want to go into mid-year, or the C's want to go into mid-year?
Yeah, so at the moment, I don't have anyone specifically looking at that, but I have a couple that I think may potentially extend, depending on how things go. I don't think I'll have any that are planned for season C that would be going in a bit earlier, just because they're more likely to be underdone, and season C is a big year next year. So there may be a couple that will make the jump and end up doing season C. It'll just depend. We'll have to just wait and see. What about yourself?
I've got a couple that are dedicated to B, to mid-year.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. So I've got a couple that are dedicated there, which is awesome. And I've got a couple that are in A that may go through to B, to the mid-year. Yep. I don't know if I have any yet that are going to go early B and then move into C. Okay. Most of my athletes that I have for C are the ones that are going to shoot for nationals, or they're already pros. So they're going to have to be at a national show or a pro show, which is late, October. So for them to try to do a, July show would be way too early for those guys. So that's how the team's looking at the moment. So yeah, awesome. I'm super excited for next year, for all the things that we have, for NBA, for our coaching, and we've got some changes that are going to happen with coaching that I'm sure we'll let everyone know about in the distant future. And then obviously we have the catch up coming at the end of the year, and then Christmas, which I can't believe is only a couple of weeks away. We'll obviously do a potty next week, and hopefully MG is recovered and he can jump on the potty, and then we'll probably wrap it up for like 2 weeks over the Christmas period, and then come back in Jan. What's your plans over Christmas? Do you guys shut up there at Powerhouse, or what do you guys do there?
No, so we trade all the way through. We run a revised timetable. So most of the classes that we run are all based in the morning, and then we have an open gym period, which goes till about, I think, 1 o'clock in the arvo, because most people, it's very quiet here till probably the 3rd week of Jan. So we run a modified timetable from basically the week of Christmas all the way through till the 3rd week of Jan. So still early mornings, and most people that are around that are going to still train, they come in, that 6 a.m. class or 7 a.m. class, and then those that just sort of float in, over the mid-morning to during the open gym time. So it is pretty quiet here, and equally I'm always here. Well, I wasn't last year, but I tend to hold down the fort here so that my staff can have a bit of a break. I think it's only me and one of the other trainers that's going to be around. Everyone else is basically taking their leave, which I don't mind either, because obviously I'm traveling quite a lot throughout the year, and it is pretty quiet. So I'll be holding down the fort, which will be a bit of a change, but for a couple of weeks it'll be good. So yeah. What about yourself? What are you guys up to?
I think I'm just going to keep coaching all the way through. Like for me, online coaching with Christmas falling on a Wednesday and New Year's Day falling on a Wednesday, my check-ins are mostly done Mondays and Tuesdays. So I'll just think I'll operate as per normal. Some people might miss their check-in on those days potentially because, they're probably away and things like that. So maybe there might be a little bit less work to do. From an NBA perspective, I think we'll be in a good position that, during those couple of weeks, we will be opening Red Joe's on Boxing Day, which keep that quiet. We haven't announced that one yet. But so there might be some, things that we need to manage during that time. But I think everything should just hum along nicely. And I don't know if I'm going to go away. I did a lot of plane trips. I did a lot of trips throughout the year. I'm not too sure if I want to get on another plane at all, to be honest. But
you've got to travel next year too. You're overseas.
Yeah, we've got a lot of travel next year. There's a lot of obviously we're traveling for all NBA, not only the shows but also all the workshops leading up until the shows. Then we have a retreat, the Bali retreat, which we're going to have to announce soon too, make that public. And then I'm going to Europe. My wedding's over there. So there's a lot of travel. There's a lot. So I was like, you know what? Over Christmas period, I actually just want to be home. I just want to be home and just chilling out and spending time with family and friends and things like that. I might travel down to the beach for a day or two here and there. But other than that, we do a family trip to Apollo Bay for Australia Day. So
nice.
I'm looking forward to that. We've been doing that every year for a very, very long time. So I'm looking forward to that.
I was going to ask. Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Have you booked your flights for your trip yet?
For Europe? Yeah. That's all booked. Yeah. So looking forward to that. We had a chat with the family over the weekend about, what we're going to do, what time we're going to spend together, where we're going to travel together. Because, it's probably going to be the last family trip I do with my parents and my brother and all these kids and everything. Like, I'm not too sure. My parents are getting a little bit older now, so I'm not too sure when they're going to next do a big family trip. So this might be the last big family trip we all do together. So we're super excited about, the wedding, but also we're excited about just having a big family trip together that will create obviously a lot of memories too. So
that's awesome, man.
Looking forward to it, man. It should be good.
Yeah.
But other than that, we'll get stuck into it because we missed last week's potty, and there's some supplement questions for you, Scott. You opened up the floodgates, mate. Yeah.
Awesome.
People wanting to ask you questions. So I'm going to kick off on those ones there. The first one is glutamine, yay or nay?
I think, is it essential? I don't think so. So glutamine, research-wise, is shown to help during the recovery phase. So obviously when you train, you break down tissue. And so during that proliferation phase, where the muscle's repairing, you get these satellite cells, which they're kind of like stem cells on the outsides of the muscle fibers. And so basically they become activated, they start to multiply or proliferate, and then they basically morph into the muscle cells. And that ultimately is what helps with repair. And so glutamine as a supplement, does it help in that to an extent? I guess you could argue, yeah, it does, but is it essential? I don't think so. I don't take glutamine. A lot of the protein powders that you would get these days, I think I've got one here. I use reaching over here. I use Evolve, and this is not a plug to Evolve, but their stuff is actually really good. But just out of reference, I'm just having a look now, and there you go. So it contains per serve, it's got 5 grams of glutamine. So this is the thing. What's that? Sorry.
That's a good dose.
Yeah, exactly right. So this is the thing. Most good quality protein powders and supplements will have that. And if you're taking glutamine as a supplement per se, you'd probably be supplementing in that range of 5 to 10 grams anyway. So for me, does it help? Like, I don't think it's going to do any harm, but is it worth like liberating money towards to try and, you know, improve recovery? I don't necessarily think that that it's essential, and especially when you're already going to be getting it as a byproduct as a result of the, you know, the isolate that you're purchasing.
I read a long time ago when I was looking at a research review that potentially glutamine helps with like gut health and digestive system, and also even female hormones too. And also, I think, remember reading that too, is it helps better with recovery if it's had intravenously.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of
all things, any supplement that you can get directly into the blood, so that it doesn't actually have to go through digestive processes, is going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're taking anything and you're having it intravenously, it would be absorbed and metabolized, you know, differently and more efficiently. But yeah, for me, the research on the gut health that I've looked at, it's pretty weak, as in there's not a whole lot behind it. I'm aware that there are some people that swear by it, but when it comes to any real supplement, provided that it's safe and it's not banned, etc., I think that if you take it and you feel better, or you think that you notice a difference, regardless of what research or science says, if you can afford to purchase it and you feel that it makes a difference, then I'm kind of like, well, have at it. Like, again, difference if you're talking about, oh, I swear by EAAs and I have 100 grams of them every single day, and you're getting it, you know, a ton of energy as a result of that in the form of calories, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. If you feel that you notice a difference and you can afford to spend money toward it, then, you know, go nuts. But do I think it's essential, and should everyone go and buy it? Is it the key to making gains, and it has all of these crazy anabolic properties? I definitely don't support that.
Okay, the next one was citrulline. So I actually was holding it up in the thumbnail, and I wanted to read out what was in the back of the tub, so we could talk through, and you can tell me whether that's legit or not. So it's actually pretty funny. I've never read the label, but it's really funny. It's really funny how they put a little story together. So they're like, citrulline malate. What is it? Well, the name is derived from citrulus, which is a Latin word for watermelon, from which it was first isolated from in 1914 by a couple of smart dudes. And yes, they isolated it from watermelon, and they were not using it for pumping iron.
Well, that is actually correct, because watermelon is very high in citrulline.
Okay, there you go. So that's true. Okay.
Good start. Yep.
They said it's not only just for brothers in iron or sisters in iron.
Does it say brothers in iron? Does it actually say that?
It actually says that. Yeah. The function of citrulline malate performed in the body is just as beneficial for endurance sports athletes as well as for weightlifting. Citrulline malate helps with your workouts by ensuring muscle tissues are getting the proper amount of oxygenated blood. Citrulline may play an important role in nitric oxide production and promotes vasodilation, which improves oxygen in the blood circulation throughout the body. Citrulline is expected to relieve muscle fatigue through ammonia elimination. Ammonia is a byproduct of exercise, which is toxic to the liver. What do we think, Scotty? Is that all that stuff pretty legit? And also identifies that I do need glasses when I read stuff too.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that genuinely hard for you to read? Like,
yeah,
I see you with the glasses whenever we have a meeting.
Put my glasses on. Jesus, man, my eyes aren't good.
Okay, fair enough. There you go. Yeah, so in terms of the, like, I guess the little synopsis that they've given of it, everything they've said, it's not wrong. It definitely is beneficial. It's funny that everyone associates citrulline, which it's not a vasodilator per se, but it helps with vasodilation in the sense that it actually helps with, it's a precursor for arginine, which obviously produces nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. But I think if you were wanting to see some performance benefits in terms of, most of the time you're talking about aerobic or anaerobic. So, you know, there is most of the research that I'm aware of, and there may be more out there, but most of it's around like improved endurance performance or faster recovery or aerobic benefits and things of that nature, because it does obviously help with, you know, promoting blood flow. But again, there's not heaps of research on it. I think it's one of those things we as physique athletes know, because it does help, you know, with blood flow, which, you know, when you're chasing a pump and you're trying to get as jacked as you can, increased blood flow is going to be beneficial. So, you know, to an extent, it is pretty spot on. So, yeah, I guess you could say that the way that they have written, they're not really going to write anything that's not correct, but it is correct that you can get it from watermelon. So I've actually never even, I can't remember the last time I purchased citrulline. I think I have some at home, but I think it's bulk, and I don't know that they go to the same degree of explaining in brothers and sisters and to that kind of detail. But yeah, so basically citrulline, my understanding of it is that it's a precursor to arginine, and a lot of people, one of the biggest questions that I usually get asked on that around citrulline, like, why would I then just take arginine? And it's because the metabolic pathway is a little bit different. So citrulline, basically it escapes, or it doesn't have to go through hepatic metabolism. So it doesn't actually have to go to the liver. It can go, directly where it needs to go to be able to produce arginine. So it's basically transported to the kidneys, and then, from there, citrulline gets converted to arginine. And as a result of it not having to go through hepatic metabolism, it just basically creates that, speeds that process up. So arginine levels are higher. And so as a result of that, nitric oxide production is greater. So yeah, I think if you're looking at a pre-workout, one of the things that I would be looking at as far as an ingredient, has it got arginine or has it got, L-citrulline malate, because they are products, citrulline is a non-essential amino acid, but they're products that you'd want to see in it in terms of what are you getting from your pre-workout. So I think most people, when they're looking at a pre-workout, they associate a good pre with feeling like they can't, stand still and they want to scratch their face off, which is most of the time just a paresthesia effect as a result of the beta alanine, when in reality, the things that you want to have, and beta alanine, helps, I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, helps with buffering capacity and allows you to train harder for longer. But citrulline is there more so to get a pump. And that is beneficial as a physique athlete, because if your pump is greater, then you're essentially creating more cellular swelling, which we know has a heightened effect in terms of some of those key signaling proteins, in terms of activating them to a greater extent. So I think if you were making your own pre-workout, if I was going to make a pre, I would have citrulline in it. It'd be probably just some citrulline, and it would be caffeine and some flavor. I think you don't need to add, and this is another thing about beta alanine. Everyone thinks you've got to have it in your pre. Beta alanine is actually absorbed better if you have it with food, but that's a different story. But yeah, I think citrulline, if you can afford to buy it on its own, I use it in my peaking process with my athletes. A lot of people get their athletes to have that or their pre-workout, 20 minutes before they're about to pump up, whereas I tend to push it in periodically throughout the morning so that we're keeping levels high, so that blood flow is very, very good, and equally would usually put it in probably an hour before they're actually going to get on stage, because everyone's different, but you're looking at maybe 30 to 60 minutes before it's actually going to be able to make its way in and be useful. So yeah, hopefully
that's interesting actually, because typically it's in a pre-workout and you have that 30 minutes before you start training. Sometimes people have it a little bit. Some people are sipping it as they walk into the gym, right? So
this is the thing with caffeine as well. So a lot of people take their pre's 10 to 15s before, but in terms of seeing peak levels of caffeine in the blood, most of the time, and again, everyone's different, but anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. So most of the research is in that latter stage. So you don't see peak levels until then. So in terms of yielding an ergogenic benefit, allowing for that a little bit earlier. So for example, when I take my pre-workout, if I'm going to work out at, I'm going to work out at 2:00, I wouldn't have it really any earlier than 1:15. It's more, people find if I take it too early and if it has beta alanine, that paresthesia effect tends to dissipate before I start my workout. But for whatever reason, they just associate that with, a feeling of, oh my God, now I'm alert, now I can get after it. When in reality, like I said, those beta alanine levels, and think of that almost like creatine in terms of you have a certain storage component. So if you miss it for whatever reason, it's not like, oh my God, I haven't had beta alanine, I'm not going to have a good workout. And so, like I said, you're better off having that with food in terms of absorption and uptake. So I think as far as if you're going to take caffeine and citrulline, taking it, more so closer to that sort of 40 to 45 minute window, I wouldn't have it usually any earlier than that. And if I do, again, you're not going to see peak levels in the blood, which, as we've just discussed, that's what's going to make the difference in terms of actually seeing some benefit. But if you were going to purchase and you're tossing up between L-citrulline malate and arginine, I would always go with citrulline malate, just because it does have a different metabolic pathway, which makes a difference, because essentially you produce arginine at a faster rate, and obviously you can then produce nitric oxide at a faster rate.
not to keep harping on, but just as an example on what you just said, if caffeine is the only one that sounds like really needs to be timed, the other ones you could really have whenever you want, as long as the tank is full going into your workout. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And that also, not to go off on a different tangent, but I guess it all kind of ties in nicely in that a lot of people, and there's actually some new pre-workouts that actually contain creatine in it. And so I'm not sure if I mentioned on here before, but maybe it was just in one of my check-ins I had with my athletes last week. Did I talk about it last week or not?
You've spoken about it on the potty in recent potties, yeah.
Yeah, so creatine, obviously it's super important, whether you take it before your workout or afterwards or before you go to bed, it doesn't really matter. But if you are taking it with caffeine or in the pre-workout, then it can become a problem, because there is research, and this is, we did a lot of stuff on this last year when I was in the, late last year when I was in the UK. And basically there is good research now. I forget the name of the researcher. I think it's Peter someone who is in Belgium, but I remember in their lab, they saw that there was a blunting response of creatine uptake when it is taken with 200 milligrams of caffeine. And if you look at most caffeine supplements that you're taking or a pre-workout, it's pretty rare that you're going to get less than 200 megs. Now, it may be less than that, but at least these studies that I'd looked at, that it was around that 200 milligram mark. So it's something that you would want to be mindful of, that you wouldn't want to be taking creatine with that. For me, I think it makes sense to have it probably in the morning and then in your post-workout shake. If you have an issue being able to tolerate it digestively, I don't. I just take 10 grams in my post-shake, which is right here, after my workouts. But otherwise, I think, yeah, you don't really, other than caffeine, timing that dosage so that around about 45 minutes to an hour before you're going to work out. Everything else, and I guess you would say citrulline falls in that camp as well, because that's how long it's going to take for that, nitric oxide production, which again, that is the actual vasodilator. It relaxes blood vessels, improves blood flow, and it ultimately delivers, oxygen to the tissues at a faster rate than if you were not to have it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's interesting. I think that's really, really useful, especially the timing thing. And I think you're right in the sense that because beta-alanine is in a lot of pre-workouts and it does have a really quick effect and then it drops off very, very quickly, people think, oh, the whole pre-workout mix is gone now. Like, it's dropped off. This is useless. Why did I should have taken it, just before I walked in the door. Now it's all gone. Whereas, that's just a reaction to you actually ingesting it. It doesn't mean that it's gone away and it's not useful for the workout. And actually, if you want to time it perfectly, you should probably have it even earlier than earlier than when you normally do.
Yeah, and again, sometimes I think you need to think about it a little bit more. Like, just take a step back. Why am I taking this supplement? Like, again, bearing in mind that a supplement is something that you are supplementing basically based on the fact that you are not able to get this from your everyday diet. So beta-alanine, you can get it within the diet. It's a little bit more tricky, but if you were wanting to supplement that, why do I need to have that directly before I work out? Again, when I'm having that, I don't like that paresthesia effect. And equally, if you have that with food, it actually, mitigates that effect. You may not even notice it, but also the research that I've looked at, it shows that it actually assists in uptake of that. So, and again, why am I having that? Because it helps with, buffering, metabolic waste, so that when you are training really hard and you get that burn and, those pH levels start to become quite low, and obviously there's a lot of acidity, then that does help to, move along those hydrogen ions and helps with that buffering capacity. So I think, again, why am I taking citrulline malate? I'm taking it so that I can get greater blood flow production. Okay, cool, because I want to get a better pump. Why am I taking creatine? Because I want to be able to train harder for longer, or if it's for, cognitive function or bone mineral density. Again, if you're taking anything, for me, no different to when I'm teaching periodization, like periodization rule 101, there must always be a reason behind why you're doing something. Why am I programming that? I guess you could say supplementation rules 101. There must always be a reason behind why you're taking something. And if you can't justify why do I need to have it, then in reality, you probably don't really need to have it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to stick with nutrition though. How does sugar under the carbohydrates on the nutrition label affect us? Or do we even need to worry about it? Should we just be concentrating on the carbs, fats, and protein within our macros? So have you ever had clients ask you, oh, what should my sugar intake be? This looks really, really high in sugar. Should I worry about it? what kind of recommendations do you give them, or do you even worry about it? If they're eating just a traditional healthy diet and it hasn't got refined sugar in it, are you even making sure they're staying aware of what their sugar is in their diet?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the foods that you're eating, like we're in an era at the moment where everyone's focused on calories in versus calories out. And I think somewhere along the way, the flexible dieting era, people kind of lost track of, we still want to feel good and we still want to function well. Like, again, calories in, calories out, you're talking about managing energy balance, which ultimately determines whether you lose fat, gain muscle, etc. But there's also other elements in terms of, how does your body feel? How do you move? How is exercise function? What is immunological? What are your immunological markers like as a result of, are you getting sufficient vitamins, minerals, etc.? And so we want to, the way that I view nutrition, rather than being like the whole 80-20 rule, we want to consume across the board a minimally processed based diet that is high in micronutrient value, so that we are getting our vitamins and minerals that we need. And by consuming a minimally processed high micronutrient based diet, again, you're still able to fulfill your requirements from an energy intake perspective, but you're equally also filling up all of those other levels that you need to function optimally as a human being. If you're someone that is, I can eat McDonald's every day and it fits my macros, and if you're naive enough to think that it doesn't have any deleterious effects on your overall health markers as a result of you just eating that every day, I think you're in for a rude awakening, because at some point you will see a change to, you'll go and get your bloods done and you'll be like, oh wow, my cholesterol levels are really, really high, or maybe my free testosterone levels are lower than I thought they would be, because I'm just eating shitty food. Even though it might meet your energy requirements, doesn't necessarily mean that on a holistic level that you're getting, like I said, you're getting all of those things, vitamins A, D, E, K, A, B, C, all of those, everything that you need in order to function as a human being. So I think stick to a minimally, process-based diet, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a donut or a burger or whatever. But again, like all things, right, it's moderation.
So what about the sugar on the label, or the sugar that ends up getting calculated in your MyFitnessPal? Should you worry about what that value actually is if you're eating the way you said you should be eating?
No, but I tend to, one of the things that I tend to encourage is, let's look at the foods that we're eating. So if we strip it back a layer and we're talking about, let's say, peri-workout nutrition, so the meal before I train, maybe the food during the workout, or the meal after. Why am I mindful? You might have something that's got, I don't know, 120 grams of carbs. My carb intake is 350 for the day, right? So let's say that you've got someone doing that and it's 100 grams of carbs afterwards. Why does it make sense? Why would I have 120 grams of carbs before if I'm not looking at it? And maybe it is whole grain sandwiches, right? Or maybe it's something that's a high fiber based carbohydrate. Yeah, but it's a high carb meal. It meets my intake, so it doesn't matter. This is where we're starting to get into elements of minutia where it does make a difference, because if we want that fuel that we're consuming, if we, rather than looking at it as calories, looking at it as a substrate, if we want to get that, through transit, through metabolism, get those nutrients into the blood, we need to be mindful of the type of carbohydrate source. So whether it's a monosaccharide, a disaccharide, or whether it's high in fiber or low in fiber, or whether it's also being consumed with fat, because all of these things contribute to the rate of gastric emptying, which means that the food going from the stomach into the small intestine, which is where we absorb all of the nutrients, for that to be able to then get across the intestinal membrane and get into the blood so that we can actually utilize it and we can start to make and generate energy. They're things that we need to be considerate of. Now, even though it might fit your intakes, that's probably not a good distribution, versus if you had between 70 to 90 grams of carbohydrates and you had a balance between glucose and fructose, because they have different transporters. Now, I don't expect everyone to know this, and we're going down on a deeper level, but this is where you could have someone who's like, I have 100 grams of carbs, versus someone, I have 90 grams of carbs, and I have mine based off, I have cream of rice with some mango, I don't have any peanut butter, and I have whey isolate, so that I'm getting a blend between two different types of carbohydrate. I'm keeping it low fiber, it's high protein, so I'm going to get everything that I need when I need it. But if I was to have a high fiber cereal and then I have peanut butter on top, fits my macros, but you might be 10 minutes into your workout and you're just standing and you feel like you've never been so bloated, and maybe halfway through you need to go to the bathroom. So they're things that you'd want to be mindful of. And so I think saving your sugary type carbohydrates to around that training window makes sense. It doesn't make sense to have slower releasing carbs, but if you're talking about your dinner meal before you go to bed, do you need fast acting carbohydrates then? No, you're probably better off to go with something that's a bit more of a slow release, higher in fiber, and equally that then has a benefit, because then when we're going to sleep, if it delays gastric emptying and gastric motility, I'm also pairing that with protein. So it's a slower absorption rate. So while I'm sleeping, and even though it doesn't matter, total net protein is what we're after, but they are little elements of minutia. But for me, that makes a lot more sense on a biochemical pathway perspective when we're looking at exercise metabolism.
Yeah. It'd be really, really cool if in MyFitnessPal, it broke it down to the type of carbohydrates that you're having. So it, like under total carbs, it then had how much glucose did you have? How much fructose did you have? How much sucrose did you have? Like all the different types of carbs. Mm-hmm. So you knew like the amounts, but yeah, that's super geeky. I don't think they'll ever go to that level because no one's ever really going to care. But
other than maybe us.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Expectations of a coach with an athlete in their off season. Should they have less contact? Should questions be ignored? Should they get no feedback on their check-ins? Is this normal? So the level of contact and the expectation from your coach versus off season and in prep. I would say there should be no difference, especially getting back to your check-ins, answering your questions, not ignoring you, those kind of things. The only thing I would say is in comp prep, the client may ask more questions. So maybe the client coming to the coach a little bit more often. And then obviously, as you get very, very close to the show, the coach may want to have more checkpoints than normal and want more level of detail than normal. Mm-hmm. And also that during peak week, on show day, and even during the reverse, because they may feel like they need a little bit more support. So the coach may have more checkpoints during the reverse and the client may ask more questions. But I don't think the coach in any way should be, less available, not giving you feedback on check-ins, those kind of things, or reduce the amount of check-ins that you have from, weekly to fortnightly to monthly and things like that. It should be all the same. But I do understand that maybe there might be less interaction because, there's less adjustments compared to the comp prep phase. But yeah, should be anything that the coach shouldn't be inducing any of those things. It may be the client actually not interacting as much because they don't feel the need that they need so much attention to detail. How about you, Scotty? Do you change the way you coach, the amount of interaction you have with someone? Do you change how often they check in, those kind of things, off-season versus comp prep?
No, so my check-in days with athletes are exactly the same, with the exception of if it's a peak week, you may check in multiple times and you're obviously having correspondence almost daily. And there probably is a little bit, like for me, I would say there's more of a heightened response time in terms of, like if I wake up now, there's no shows, and after I have a shower, if I look at my phone at 6 a.m. and I'm like, wake up like this morning and I had 28 WhatsApp messages, and I'll sort of go through and have a look and equally try and prioritize, okay, well, who's checking in today versus who sent these through last night. There are some athletes that will send you stuff every single day. Some of it requires instant response, some of it not so much. Like if it's, I'm sending through my my pendulum squats and my RDLs, and equally it's not pressing, there's no injury or anything that is really warranting acute response there and then, in their check-ins the next day, I'll usually cover that sort of stuff in their check-in the next day. But if someone goes out of their way to send me something, I'll always try and respond. I always say within 24 hours. Most times before I clock off for work, I try and clear my my WhatsApp so that all the work stuff is done. But I think as well on the weekends, again, if it's not a comp, I used to be really bad at this, and I've gotten a lot better since I've had a family, but I'm pretty protective of my Sunday. So basically from like 7 a.m., if someone's sending me anything on WhatsApp, unless they're in the thick of comp prep or whatever, I usually won't even look at my WhatsApp because I keep all of my work-related stuff to that. And that's just by virtue of wanting to have some separation in order for us to operate at the level that we operate at. And we do give a lot of our time and a lot of our energy. I also argue that you need time to then also fill back up. And so having a day of no check-ins, no bodybuilding, no correspondence allows you to do that. So come Monday morning, 6 a.m. hits, bang, I'm ready to go again. Do you find?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. And I was like you too. I was probably really bad, and I was answering questions and looking at my phone when I really shouldn't have been back then to protect my time. But yeah, I've definitely got a lot better at that too. And I think also clients understand and they know not to bother you, or I might open my phone on a Monday and they've messaged me on Sunday saying, don't respond to this now, but I'm just wanting to message you this because I have it on my mind. So I think clients need to understand. But yeah, that's the art of coaching and making sure that, you know, as a coach, as you said, you also have time to yourself so that you can be your best during the week and during the coaching time.
Yeah, and I think as well, even as an athlete, there has to be an element of understanding that the family needs this as well. Like you think about kicking needs, you think about how much time and energy you give all of your athletes. You know, I'm exactly the same, all of my athletes. And so when it comes time for you to be off, your partner and equally, they're the ones that really ultimately fill up our cup. Like for me, it's Jen and my kids. For you, it's Kiki and your family and hopefully me and MG.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, that ultimately then allows you as a practitioner to then wake up the next day and be ready to just go to war and, you know, work the magic. So I think it's an element of obviously knowing as an athlete and a coach, knowing when to give and when to take. And so I think it's a bit different if you're like, I just competed on a Saturday and say, for example, like the comps. And so one thing I know we're all a little big on, we would set our athletes up if a show they're finishing on a Saturday wasn't planned, even though they might have intended to do a show the week later. I would make it a point either late that night or first thing in the morning before they're probably even awake to send through, this is what we're going to do, this is the plan. And that probably breaks that boundary because it's like, you need guidance during this period here. And then they may get a little bit more response time almost every day for that first week because it's a little bit more turbulent. So I think they're the things that, you know, they're outliers, but equally, I think as time goes on and as you've been in this space a bit longer, like we have, you kind of know, you know, where things are at. And I think the demographic of athletes that we work with probably align with that. I think it's more if you're a new coach and you're first starting out, it can be a little bit tricky to be able to navigate it because you want to give everyone your time all the time, but ultimately there's no, you know, longevity to that. Eventually you'll hit a big speed bump. So yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I recently had a blood test done post-show, and they came back indicating that my testosterone was low for a female in their early 20s. Any recommendations on how to approach this without using HRT? Also, what are the impacts would a HRT have if I was to compete with NBA or maybe any natural fed? So girl, early 20s.
Old?
Sorry?
How old was she?
It says early 20s. Female, early 20s, low testosterone coming out the back end of a show. I'd say
you don't need HRT. It's very, very common. Most women, you know, estradiol levels will be completely in the toilet. So it's to be expected because when you do start to get very lean, sex hormone production basically stops. That's why your menstrual cycle is there and then it's gone. And so by gaining back some body fat, staying in a consistent state of positive energy availability, and then you just pair that with time and then not freaking out if you're gaining some weight. Again, you're going to gain weight at some point anyway. So if you get there a little bit quicker, again, the reverse diet everyone used to be really big on. This is something obviously I presented in Bali on the recovery phase. And I've been pretty open in that I tend to lean more into the camp of gaining back a little bit more body weight a little bit quicker because I think, and there's more research coming out now supporting that in a case study format, that some of those markers, those endocrine markers tend to come back up a lot quicker. And ultimately, let's say like the last time you competed when you were on stage, let's say that you were 77 kilos and let's say what was your last stage? What was your stage weight? We'll use you in the
75 flat. Just under, but yeah, just say that.
Yep, cool, 75. So, and then let's say that if you're 90 kilos now, you've been in this state for a pretty lengthy period of time versus if you were to have taken 6 months to climb, and a lot of athletes do that, both men and women, from 75 to 80, there would come a point where your body would just say, I've had enough of this. And then you're just going to get back to that nice body sat point where you feel good. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to arrive at that point anyway. Mm-hmm. Whether, I'm not saying that you need to gain 15 kilos in the space of 2 weeks, but if you regain a little bit quicker than you planned, in some ways, you know, aesthetically, you might find it a little bit more turbulent, but I guarantee you're going to feel a heck of a lot better. Food-seeking behaviors will dissipate, and your training performance and all those other blood markers will return to baseline a lot quicker. So I think, you know, for me, if I could take a pill and then go back from, you know, if I'm 83, 84 kilos and I can take a pill and go back to 95 kilos and lose being shredded, but I feel back to off-season normal straight away, I would do it straight away. I don't give a shit about the reversing, wanting to look good. I don't fucking care about any of that. I'd rather just feel good and get back to that state where you know that, you know, at this weight, you know, I'm definitely not too fluffy, but I'm not super lean, but I feel good. Everything's great. That's what you should be striving for. So my advice is eat more, give it some time, and then go and get your bloods done, you know, maybe another 8 weeks after that, once body weight and body fat levels have started to climb. And I think you'll find that a lot of those levels and those markers will start to come back up.
Yeah, definitely get back to a comfortable weight. Doesn't have to be your full off-season weight, just a comfortable weight where you like to be sitting at. Be there for a little bit of time, and then get a test done again and double check everything. But just give yourself some time, being back in a surplus and getting back to a healthy weight before you resort to anything else other than that. And I would assume also too, on your blood test results, there's probably other markers that were out of the range. And some of your vitamins and minerals are probably out of the range too. And I would almost assume too that bringing those back up, maybe having to supplement with vitamin B12 or whatever that may be, maybe make sure you're having your vitamin D, your fish oils, all that kind of stuff. All that will also help bring those hormone markers back to where they need to be too. So I wouldn't jump on a whole bunch of supplements. I just fix your health first, see where it all lands, and then from there, see what else can be done. But as for HRT and then competing with a natural federation, there are medical exemptions, but something like that would be looked at very heavily and would be scrutinized. So it's don't bank on the fact that you can be on HRT and get a medical exemption from a natural federation. So just be mindful of those things too. But again, talk to the feds if you have any concerns, and they'll be able to give you a little bit more in-depth answer on that one there too. All right, I think that's it. I think we might leave it there. Otherwise, we're not going to have any good ones to talk to MG about. So we're going to have to we'll leave some for him. But
did we get through a few of them, or is there still lots there?
We got through a bunch. Yeah, we got through a fair bit. There's some other ones that will go down a rabbit hole, but we won't get into those at the moment. So let's leave it there. I think that was a good one. I think we spoke a little bit about supplements and stuff too. So hopefully that eases everyone's curiosity. But it was good catching up, and hopefully
hopefully we get the great man back next weekend or next week. Sorry.
Yeah, for the last one before Christmas.
Yeah, it will be. And does that mean the meetup is next Sunday?
Yep,
it is too. Oh wow. There you go.
A lot of people have messaged. They said they're excited to come. So everyone put it in their calendar. We're super excited. Scotty, now I just wanted to leave you on this note. Mm-hmm. I did a little bit of a video and a story announcing that. Did you listen all the way through to the end?
So at first I didn't. And then people started sending me messages. And I was like, what? And then I watched it and I was like, well played. I love how calm you just said it as well. And anyone in the state, they're going to be able to stay at Scotty's place. And he's going to show you how to make rice. That was good.
Let's see if Scotty picks up on this. And
did you get much traction on it?
Oh, man. So many people were like, yes, I can't wait to have Scotty's cream of rice and stay at his house.
That's so funny. Very good by you, MT. You're just continuing to up, bro.
Yeah, we'll do. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll chat soon. And have a good one.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Yeah.